George Washington is undoubtedly one of the greatest masculine leaders in American history, in human history for that matter. But most people only know the textbook story of him, that he was the first president, that he was the commander of the Continental Army that defeated the British in the Revolutionary War, and that he was a founding father. But his story is far more interesting and masculine than most men realize. A lot of people know George Washington as being this like perfect, calm, stoic man. But in fact, he was anything but that. He was born as a man that had violent rage problems when he was younger. He had outbursts, he had a temper, and he knew that if he was going to become anything in life, he had to learn to control that. Washington set out to train his emotions like a soldier. He had these written rules that he kept on him. He reviewed them daily, and he was training himself so he could be calm amid chaos that was erupting around him. Like most great men in history, Washington understood that if you can't manage your own emotions, if you can't master yourself, you can never lead others. You can never govern over other people. But ironically, Washington did not want fame or power to be involved in politics. He wanted a quiet, rural life for himself. Washington's dream was to have a quiet farm with acres of land where he surveyed it, where he raised a family and kept a quiet life. But when history called, he answered. And this is one of the highest expressions of masculine development, is to answer the call, even when it costs you everything, even when it costs you the life that you wish you would have had. Washington was extremely physically dominant. He was 6'2", which was unheard of in those days. He was undefeated in wrestling matches. And in fact, he could ride a horse for over 10 hours. And people often wrote and remarked that he was made of iron. Valley Forge in the winter under horrible conditions where his men were freezing, they were starving, and they were ready for mutiny. They followed his lead because he never showed panic. He was very fearful, but he never let his men see it, and he continued on with strength and perseverance and courage. After the war was over, Washington resigned his post, which is unheard of because usually in situations like this, a man who had that much military authority would try to grab more power. In fact, he was offered to be king multiple times during his life. He turned that down. He just wanted to go back to Mount Vernon and live out his dream on his farm. But as the country was falling apart under the Articles of Confederation, the founding fathers basically begged him to become president. He reluctantly took up the call to become president, and after his second term was over, he walked away from power in a peaceful way, which again is almost unheard of in the history of humanity. Looking for an example of leadership, of duty, responsibility, discipline, sovereignty, purpose, there's perhaps nobody better than George Washington.